Okay, welcome to the tiebreaker. So if second player ties, they win the match for reasons. And I conveniently have second player, which is not at all convenient at all on this board. It looks like something that first player will benefit from a lot more than second player. So, okay, the idea is you get your peasant, you get your chapel on the opening, buy lots of ports and use those for draw, and then, well, you have to think about what you want to use your draw for. But in the meantime, before we get there, let's just focus on how to get there, right? So we both open the same way. I see very nice chapel hand here, very nice chapel hand. So my opponent does not miss his peasant, picks up a dungeon. That dungeon, you'll see that dungeon later. Dungeon is a good card. Anybody who tells you otherwise is lying to you. Dungeon is a good card. And ports, important. His chapel missed, so this might give me an opportunity to come back into the game. It'll delay his trashing, obviously, so hopefully, hopefully that gets rid of his first player advantage is what I was thinking here. So a couple ports for me, unfortunately, does not save the collision here. What can you do? What can you do? So what do you play here? Soldier or Chapel? Soldier or Chapel? In the end, I went for the Soldier because one, I need to keep pace with my opponent's peasant line. Two, it lets me buy ports, which is important. Important for the peasant line as well. And I can trash later once I get that teacher token down on the ports. So that's why I went for the ports here instead of the chapel trash. Perhaps the chapel trash is better there. I don't know. I don't think so. I seriously think the port is better there. Okay, so out comes the dungeon, right? Out comes the dungeon, and some more ports for my opponent. He gets his fugitive, so I have the fugitive now, right? So I'm ahead. If I had seen the fugitive here, I would have, maintained my little half a turn lead there, but I didn't. And as it turns out, that dungeon is going to draw him into his fugitive. So he has back that, half a turn advantage from being first player here. I consider whether or not to kill everything here. Maybe I wanted to buy another peasant, but I decided to get rid of all the coppers. I have 3 left. That should be enough to get me through the rest of this game. Yes, 3 coppers is all we need. So out comes his fugitive, and then my fugitive will follow, right? So that's what I'm talking about, the half a turn advantage. So that dungeon, dungeon is a good card, man. Dungeon is a very good card. Second peasant for my opponent. So there we go, right? There we go. Now we're getting dangerously close to, having over trashed our deck, so much so that I'm considering not chapeling anything here at all. But I decided to cut one. I decided to cut one just to buy a peasant. Next turn, I will have 3 still because of the peasant, and maybe more if I decide to go ahead and disciple the peasant, right? Maybe more. Maybe more. Perhaps I want to use the disciple on the port instead. So my opponent uses his disciple on our port, and he's going to buy a couple more here, so that makes him win the port split. He has 7 of them already, and if I leave one there, he'll pick up the last one somehow, and then 8 to 4 is very bad for me, that split, so I decide to just make it 7 to 5 by using my disciple on this port here. Not ideal, of course, but I have to do what I have to do, right? Not trashing again. And now what do you buy? Now I'm in the back here, like very clearly in the back. My opponent's teacher is down, waiting to come into play. I don't have a teacher yet. I still have to set mine aside, and storeroom is my play of choice here. Plus buy 1. 2, I will have overdraw soon, and I want to convert that overdraw into some kind of advantage, and that's what the storeroom does. It'll convert my overdraw into money, and which is what I'm lacking, actually. Which is what I'm lacking, very much so. So the teacher comes down for my opponent. There was some small chance that he didn't see it, but he did see it, and he picks up here another peasant. So his soldier gets converted into a fugitive again, I believe. Oh, he held on to his soldier? Oh, it seems like he's held on to his soldier. Interesting. Perhaps for the money. Anyways, so I didn't see the storeroom, which is okay. I don't care to see the storeroom. I did see my teacher. That's what I care to see. If that was the bottom card of the deck, trouble, trouble. See how much difference one card could make? One card. Anyways, 4 again for me here, and I have to think very, very carefully because I'm in the back half a turn here, I feel, which is enough for my opponent, who's definitely skilled enough to convert this. So what do I get on $4 here? Silver, Peasant, Dungeon, Envoy. Now, Envoy and Minstrel are not things that I considered, but Mick Seanock, the esteemed Mick Seanock, offered some advice to me after this game, and it seems like one of those two would actually have been quite strong because it's another. I'll tell you why later. I'll tell you why later. But those are definite considerations, and it's not something I had in my mind at this juncture in the game. Instead, Salvager was in my head. Salvager was in my head, and another buy also points from Tomb. Right, Tomb is here for points, and you get that from trashing. And now my opponent's teacher comes out, and I fully expected this to be plus card on the ports, but I was wrong. It was plus coin on the ports. So that's how he's planning to solve his money problem. Here he buys a gold and a haunted woods, but he hasn't solved his draw problem. You notice there's 2 cards left in stack there. So he's not drawing everything, which could run him into problems. Could, but he's fixing it with the haunted woods, which is fine. I do put my plus card on the ports here. I think that's the wave. It'll make the most use of my storeroom here, which I'm going to use for $4. Now the reason why Mick suggested Minstrel or Envoy here is because my fugitive will soon turn into a disciple here, and I can use that disciple on one of those actions. And I could have put plus coin on it. So for instance, had it been Minstrel, Disciple and Minstrel is 2 coin. I would probably find back that Minstrel and get a 3rd coin all on that same turn. So that's $3. Very, very nice, right? Very, very good for money here. Instead, I go for a gold and a peasant. Envoy is also excellent for the storm, like especially with the storm. I should have considered the Envoy. There's so much overdraw, so much money could have been made from that storm, so much more. Plus, you would get an extra coin off on the Envoy. I'd have probably put action on the Envoy, to be honest. But yeah, that storm would have worked wonders had it been the Envoy. So yeah, inaccuracies. This is why I like people to comment on my games. I learn a lot, especially when, a man as skilled as McSeenock gives you advice. You would do well to listen to it. Anyways, so my opponent here makes the horrible, horrible choice. I say horrible because it makes me think a lot. I had to speed up this video by 4 times just to get through this in a reasonable amount of time. This part anyway. Mountain Pass. He buys the province and I have to think about how much debt am I willing to go into? How much debt is he willing to go into? I don't want to go into debt. I want to build because I'm in the back. I need to build to try to catch up to my opponent, but I can't just let him take the 8 points for free, right? I just can't do that. In fact, I kind of want the 8 points because it would help me catch up to him on points. And there's only so many points on the board, right? Salvager can only trash so many things. There's no big trashing to be had here. In the end, I decided on 17. Why? I don't know why. Okay, I have some ideas why. I felt like, okay, I could clear 17 debt. I had the Salvager, so I could spike up in money if I needed to, right? To clear the debt quickly, so I could get rid of the gold, for instance, to clear that debt quickly if I needed to. And I thought that was a bit too much for him. It would stall him out for maybe 1 or 2 turns. Stall in the sense prevent him from buying provinces. He does take the debt, right, and the points. So now I'm 13 points in the back. He's 18 coins in debt, and I have to make this count, right? So that's like 2 provinces. If I get 2 provinces, I'll catch up with him. So I have to use this time to catch up with him on points, because this is only really the provinces for points, right? You can't fight up with duchies too much. There's just Salvager around to end the game very quickly. So I have to use this time to set up and very, very carefully, very, very meticulously try to play myself out of this hole. I already missed a trick there with the Envoy or the Minstrels. So I have to play with what I have right now. He's in debt, he's ahead, but in debt. So we'll see what we can do with this here. thinking a bit. You'll see a lot of thinking here. Whenever I pause, it's because I'm thinking. So I'm thinking about whether or not to use the Disciple on the storeroom. I don't think that does much good at all. Um, I don't have a target for the Disciple now, which is an issue, right? Which is an issue. Um, Disciple on Salvager is the next natural choice, but I don't want to do that just yet. Don't want to do it just yet. Instead, I'm just going to use my Disciple a bit weakly here, in that I'm not gaining something from it, but I'm just going to use it to make my storeroom give me 4 coins instead of the usual, not usual, but instead of the 2 if I just play the port, right? I could also Disciple the Peasant. Another option, of course, another option, of course. Perhaps better, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I didn't really feel or care to advance the peasant line anymore because there were very little targets for my Disciple. I was using it effectively as a throne room throughout this latter part of the game here, which is bad. You know, your Disciple can do more than that. You don't have to restrict it to throne room, but oh well. We learn, right? We're learning. We're early in the tournament. It's better you make your mistakes and inaccuracies now rather than you do it later. So gold is obvious for money reasons, and dungeon here, the mighty dungeon. I considered gold and silver. Perhaps the dungeon is overly conservative in that I already have a storeroom, but I lose if I stall. I cannot afford to stall, and dungeon helps with that. Yeah, dungeon helps with that big time. So I do take the dungeon here, single dungeon, instead of the silver. And my opponent calls his teacher again, puts plus card on the peasant. Again, that doesn't draw him cards necessarily, but he gets to the end of his deck here with the help of the Haunted Woods draw. Disciples are peasants, so he only has 3 of these guys, and he was able to come with $15. I was impressed. I didn't realize he had that much money in his deck, but apparently he does. So that's something to be concerned about. Plus coin goes on the Salvager. There's not much else to do. Could have been plus action, but I need money bad. So I need money bad. So that's why I did that. Here, alright, I choose not to go ahead and disciple the port. Instead, I am going to go ahead and disciple the soldier this time. I don't gain a soldier, of course, but my idea here is that I'm punishing my opponent's lack of draw, making him discard down like a militia would. So that is why I did that. Is also more money, I believe. I get 2 the first time and 3 the second time if I disciple the soldier. So that's why I did that. Nice attack to hit my opponent who is struggling for draw a little bit. Province. We have to start scoring, right? We have to start scoring. In fact, so much so that I'm going to buy a duchy here. My opponent is so clear of that. He was able to get 15 last turn. Similar turn, we get him to 12, maybe 13 this time. Not sure what the status is with his, peasants and soldiers and whatnot. But he doesn't have draw, and I'm counting on that to slow him down a little bit. And you know what? It does slow him down a bit. He can't buy province. He gets up to 9. Puts the teacher down. Bit unfortunate, but not able to buy province. Instead goes for Salvager and another peasant. Does attack me with a soldier here, which is fine. He's keeping these peasants in the deck. They're plus card for him now. It's also plus buy. But yeah, so my dungeon comes out, saves my turn. I have to use this disciple on the port here just to make sure I draw through everything. So I don't have any option of discipling a soldier now. Too bad. But it does mean that my storeroom will give me 4 coin. Draw up everything. Soldier. And yeah, this was my plan from a while back, right? This teacher is doing nothing. That goes in the bin. And I'm able to pick up double province. Haunted Woods hits me, which is kinda bad. Could be bad, especially considering I don't have the dungeon in place, so we'll see what comes out of it. Did manage to attack my opponent for 1 discard. We'll see how much that does. But he has the Haunted Woods in place, so I don't expect it to hurt him too much. And here, I kept the soldier on the previous turn, but now I'm converting the soldier. The reason is double province is not safe for my opponent. I have the Salvager, I have a throne room effectively. I just need to find it and I can end the game. Like, he can't even take single province because I could probably triple if I throw in that Salvager. And what helps me find that is the fugitive as opposed to the soldier. So very, very deliberate on when I convert these travelers here. He's not able to draw through quite everything, but most things, and he's gonna be able to get up to province and duchy here. But again, like I said, province is dangerous for him because I have that play in mind, right? I just need to find my disciple with my salvager and the 2 golds. That's it. We're done. And the provinces, of course, right? So I just have to play my hand and keep the necessary cards in here, and we should be okay to win this game. We're tied on points right now. I'll trash a couple times. 2 will come through. I'll replace the points that I trash with salvager and buy the last province to win. Just need to see the cards in the right order. So, do we see it? Port or dungeon first? I think port is better here first because I have to use the throne room on the salvager. You ordinarily would probably play dungeon first to try to pair your port with the throne room, but doesn't matter. The win requires me to put the throne room on the salvager. So here, salvager comes up, gold comes up. I don't need the storeroom because I get the buys from the salvager. There's the fugitive in play as opposed to the soldier, and we find it and we take game 7. So we were in the back. Somehow we played out of it and took game 7. And it takes us to round 3. So thank you everybody for watching. Who watched the match in person, who watched it on YouTube. Please leave comments, feedback. Um, thank you for